Marketing strategy especially. I think Rob talked a lot about that. I handed you a separate sheet that lists a lot of different marketing strategies that you can kind of refer to with him and with your marketing folks. Just give you some ideas, and if you want, I'll explain what that is a little bit later. Business plan is something you'd have to do outside of that, and funding. The other thing I included was, and I didn't have enough copies to go around, but there's a blog that I wrote here on delegate or do. It's delegate or do. It's either you do it yourself, and there's a pie chart there that shows this is the basket of stuff that I'm doing right now. And what do I do? If I want to grow the business, I'm working 50 hours. I want to grow the business 20%. I want to take that to 60 hours. And then the next 20% is 72 hours, and do the math. Or start delegating, and that talks about that. And also another one on some hiring ideas that you can take a look at. So
those should be on the website too.
Yes, and they are on the website. Yes, thank you. So those should also be on the website. So if you didn't get the hard copy, you can check on the website. Also, the videos that we're taking now will eventually make it onto the website once we get Josh to do the editing and all that stuff. So, and there's past videos as well that are available through the website, so I'd encourage you to do that. So, and I hope this is okay. Nobody minds eating while they're listening. So, but I think this will work out better than, as Rhonda said, having to smell the food for the next half hour. Multiplier, and this is actually based on this book, which each of you that signed up for, they're ordering a copy. You'll be contacted, and you've got a copy of this then waiting for you soon. And I would recommend that you definitely read that and take that to heart. There's some good stuff. What I'm going to do here is to talk about the book itself, some of the strategies they talk about in there, and then draw from my own experience running a factory, doing some things that I've done as far as leadership is concerned. So I like this. You know, it's been said that after a meeting with the British Prime Minister William Gladstone, you were feeling that he was the smartest person in the world. But after a meeting with his rival, Benjamin Disraeli, you left thinking that you were the smartest in the world. That's leadership. If you can empower your people, if you can talk to people and build them up, that's great leadership. So based on interviewers, multipliers get almost a twofold increase in effectiveness from their employees. You know, we talk about efficiency, we talk about getting the most from our employees. This is the way to do it. You're actually going to get more out of them, much more out of them, than you would with the cattle prod philosophy or holding them accountable for every little tiny thing, whatever. If you can actually get people engaged, get people interested in what the business is, and they care about it, it's the emotional part of it, the emotional tie with the business and your values, what you're trying to do with the business, that's when things are going to really fly. So multipliers really extract the capability from the people. Multipliers extend and grow the intelligence more than people knew they had. And you've probably known the opposite of this as well, where people will they walk into a room and they suck the air out of it. That's the diminisher, okay? An easy way of defining this, and he doesn't do it in the book, the way I look at it, let's say you had your board meeting, your team meeting, okay? And you've got 10 people at the table, you're leading the meeting, or the leader, I don't want to pick on you. Which is better, to have 10 brains engaged in that problem or to have one? The multiplier will have all 10 brains engaged to solve that problem. The diminisher will have one, because the diminisher is going to tell everybody how to do their particular area of the business. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. And I don't care how smart you are. You may be the smartest person in the room, but you can't be the smartest in everything. And that's really the key. You may be the smartest person in the room, but not on everything. So how can you get the most out of your people? And that's what this is going to address. It's going to be how to be that multiplier, how to get as much as you possibly can out of everybody. And guess what? If you're getting as much as you can out of everybody, they're going to have more fun with it. They're going to enjoy it, because they're going to be feeling that they're contributing to the success of that business even more. So it's not just out of selfishness that you do this, but it's out of helping the people to have more fun at their job. And oh, by the way, you make more money at it and all kinds of good stuff there too. Jim Collins, if you haven't read Good Great, that's another wonderful book. Level 5 leaders channel their ego away from themselves and into the larger goal of building a greater company. It's not all about them. It's about the company. It's about making this place a better place to work. It's about growing it. It's being able to employ more people. Yes, it's about being more profitable and all that stuff as well. But everybody wins if you can get that level 5 leader. It's not about their ego. And another example that he talks about in his business was, if you think of Lee Iacocca when he took over Chrysler. He was not level 5, he was level 4. He was very good, very powerful, he did a wonderful thing with the company. But what happened when he left? It kind of dissolved. The level 5 leader leaves a legacy. They empower the people so that the business continues, whether the business owner or the business CEO is there or not. That's level 5. Logic of addition. Typical negotiation with management. 20% output needed, so let's add 5% more resources. What it's talking about here is if, let's say, you had a negotiation taking place between the management and the union or the workers. We need to get 20% more output. Well, the only way to do this is to add more resources. But the union, the people aren't going to be happy because it's only a 5% increase in resources, but they want 20%. So what ends up with a thing like that is nobody's happy. Is it a compromise? Yeah, but it's a not real happy one. People are overworked. Our best people are the ones that are most maxed out. Therefore, accomplishing a bigger task requires the addition of more resources, more people. Or, and that ignores the opportunity to more deeply leverage the existing resources. Logic of multiplication. More efficiently extract the capability of your people. How do you get more out of the people that you've got? Because most people in the organization are underutilized. They may be doing just what they've been told to do. They may not be offering new ideas. They may not be going forth and suggesting different things. That's the kind of environment that you want. I'll give you an example. I ran a factory, an assembly operation and test. What we did is we made little low voltage switches. And they would be connected to the power through a cable. The cable had a little paper sleeve over it. The paper sleeve came in 10-foot sections, 100 pieces to a box, and we would pull one out, cut it, snip, 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 6 inches, 8 inches, 10 inches, whatever it was, and do this manually. One of the guys out on the floor said, you know, these things are in a cardboard box, 100 pieces to a box. We've got a bandsaw in the back that's like this. The box is like that. Why not just cut through the entire box, 100 pieces at a time, and you've got it done. He saved us 99%, do the math, of the cost of cutting those things into the lengths that we wanted. And it was kind of neat too, because then they were prepackaged in the cardboard box that they were in. So it worked out great. But that was one of the workers that came up with that. That wasn't me, an electrical engineer, MBA. That wasn't my industrial engineer. That was the guy out on the floor making $9 an hour, whatever it was. And we had repeated things like that. Why? Because we multiplied their capability. They were coming up with ideas that we hadn't thought of because they're closer to it. So the more you can engage the people, the more work, the more productivity that you can get out of them. All capability can be leveraged with the right kind of leadership. Intelligence and capability can be multiplied without a larger. So how can you get the more out of the folks? And it's not getting more with less, it's getting more with more of the people's intelligence and capability. Are they fully engaged? Most of the people are not. But that's whose fault? Is that their fault, or is that our fault as their manager? I would say it's our fault. The diminisher views intelligence based on elitism and scarcity. Only a few people in the organization are actually capable of contributing ideas. Think about the band leader. The diminisher is going to be, if you think about a band leader and they're going to be helping to lead the orchestra, do they necessarily have to know how to play every instrument in the band, every instrument in the orchestra? Do they typically know how to? Yeah, they may be able to play a few. But you don't have to, and they're not going to be as effective if, oh, wait a minute, I got to go do the fiddle, I got to go do the oboe, whatever it is. Think about in sports. You know, how many of the coaches are capable of playing every position on the field? You know, they may have been a fullback, they may have been a quarterback, they may have been whatever and actually played football. But if you think about it, they may not have the genetics for playing every position on the field. So that's not the point. The point is, how can you get folks to contribute as much as they possibly can, given their skill set, given their personality, given the gifts that they were given? How can you best utilize that person? And thinking that you can do everything and do it better than everybody in the room is wrong. Now, you may be the closest, you may be have built this business from start, and that's typically the hardest part. That's where that one article came from that I wrote. If you've built the business from start, you may have had to have done everything at one point, and you may be the most efficient at that particular moment in time. But if you can leverage that and get other people doing it, then you've gone beyond yourself and you're getting much more out of your team. Okay. Multipliers have a rich view of intelligence of the people around them. They see intelligence as continually developing. What is their talent? Do you know what their talent is? How well do you know your people? Have you asked them what they want to do? What's the best idea from them? Those are questions that are not often asked. This, and if somebody, well, you've got the copy there, but I like this as just a quickie reference. You know, how would you manage talent? If you're a diminisher, you use it. You know, you're the best at I'm just going to suck as much as I possibly can out of you, not necessarily getting any new ideas, but I'm going to give you your task, I'm going to tell you what to do and how to do it and where to do it and when to do it, etc., as opposed to develop the individuals. Get them to do more and more. And self-guidance, a little bit of that. Mistakes. The diminisher is going to blame whoever it is, as opposed to explore. Good example there is mistakes. Anybody use Post-its? The little sticky things? You know that was a mistake, right? You heard that story? But the neat thing was, from the management perspective, the guy that designed that came up with the glue, was looking to make a very powerful, very strong glue. He goofed. But rather than saying, okay, I made a mistake, I'm going to go hide that in the closet someplace, not tell anybody, he made it available to everybody. Oh, by the way, I screwed up on my design work, and here's what I ended up with. It's kind of a weak glue. Well, one of the other team members was looking to have something, he wanted a weak glue. He thought about using this for the Post-it. So I don't know who finally got the credit for Post-its, but the point being, because they had such an open environment that mistakes were not blamed on anyone. It was, okay, what did we learn from this? We now enjoy using Post-its. Set direction. The diminisher is going to tell, the multiplier is going to challenge. And that's great, because if you challenge somebody, they're going to come up with things that they didn't know they were capable of. Make decisions. The diminisher will decide. They'll make all the decisions because they're the smartest in the room. Absolutely. As opposed to consult and see if somebody else has a better idea, which they probably do. Getting things done. It's all about the control for the diminisher. They have to be in control of everything at every moment during the day, as opposed to supporting, which is the multiplier. 5 disciplines of the multiplier. They attract and optimize talent. If you're a multiplier, people are going to want to work with you because they want to be able to express themselves well. And what often happens is, if it's a diminisher, the best of the best will leave because they get bored. They're not challenged. They're going to do what they can. They may enjoy it for a while, and then once they learn how to master it, since you're not continually challenging them, they go find something else to do. And it's not about the money, it's about the challenge. You know, yes, they have to be competitively paid and all that sort of thing, but that's not what keeps people. What keeps people is challenged and being able to contribute. Create intensity that requires best thinking. You know, the unique motivating environment acting as a liberator. And diminishers are the tyrants, the opposite of that. So create that intensity. You want to have drive. You want to be pushed. You want to drive your team forward and be demanding of them. But at the same time, it's in a constructive, not a destructive sense. Does that make sense? Extend challenges. They're challengers as opposed to know-it-alls, which are the diminishers. So challenge the team. Continually challenge the team to move it forward. new ideas, new and better ways of doing things. You know, having worked in the factory, there's always a better way to do something. And I found the same thing now with the coaching, the things that I'm doing now. There's always a better way to be doing something. Debate decisions. You want to stop conflict? No. But that's what a lot of managers will do. You know, we don't allow any conflict. There's no conflict in here. There's no disagreements. We're all going to have to come to consensus. That's not what you want. What you want is the best idea out of the group. You want the group to be supporting each other. You want the group to be challenging each other. And even if it's outside their department, that's okay. You know, don't allow the idea that, well, you know, this is a marketing issue. The engineer or the accounting people can't comment on a marketing issue. Sure they can, because they've got a different perspective. And they may not be a marketing trained person, but they're a consumer. They may have some ideas that you hadn't thought of from a different perspective. So you want to have that open atmosphere to be able to solicit disagreements, debate. Without it, you're never going to get as far as you possibly could. You're going to get one perspective, or worst case, if you're, maybe not worst case, but not a good case, if you're looking for consensus, what you're going to find is the lowest common denominator. You're going to have to find something that everybody agrees to. That's not necessarily the best solution. I just got done reading Insanely Simple, which is a history of Apple and Steve Jobs and that kind of thing. And whether you like Steve Jobs or not, he did a really good job of soliciting debate. He was oppressive in some cases. He was certainly opinionated. But he was very open to new ideas, and if somebody could make a case for something, that's what he wanted. He wanted the absolute best solution available, whether he thought about it or not. He wanted it simple, he wanted it effective, he wanted to have the best decision. Instill ownership and accountability. If people take ownership in the business with you, they're not going to let you make a mistake. That's cool. That's fun. I saw that in the factory. If I said something and I wasn't necessarily right, not that I was ever wrong, but I would be corrected, and that's a good thing. You know, hey, that's a good idea. Here's a better idea. You know, Curt, take a look at this. And it was a better idea. I sat there and looked at that way that we made those paper sleeves for probably 2 years before that guy came up with that idea. I didn't come up with it. I can't take credit for it. And I didn't try to. I gave credit where credit was due. He came up with that, and I've told that story I don't know how many times now. So yeah, if you get the folks to take ownership, your team members to take ownership, they're not going to let you get into trouble, because that's their business. You're not allowed to make a mistake. Now you want them to be polite and that sort of thing, but at the same time, you're not going to get away with much, which is good. That's a good thing. So 5 disciplines again. You know, the diminisher, tyrant builder, as opposed to talent magnet. Tyrant versus liberator, know-it-all versus challenger, decision maker versus decision debate maker, sorry, and micromanager versus investor. Anybody worked for a micromanager before? Yeah, isn't that fun?
I just needed to make sure they weren't raising their hands.
Yeah, your guys, no.
They were afraid, I think.
Yeah.
Curt.
But it's not as effective. You know, sometimes it's an ego thing. You know, if I'm in charge, I'm going to make the decisions. And certainly the buck has to stop with the manager. None of this says anarchy. None of this says you don't want to be a strong leader. That's not to be implied here at all. You want to be a strong leader, but you want to lead, not dominate, not be the tyrant. And there's a difference there. Sometimes it's more subtle than others, but there is a big difference. The hard edge. Multipliers extract great things. Multipliers are beyond results-driven managers. It's all about the results if you're a multiplier, and you're holding people accountable. You've got metrics in place. And not only are you holding them accountable, they are holding them accountable, because you're having a team meeting. It's not about me or you or him or Bill or Bob or what. It's about the team. It's about the business going forward. So is there accountability? Yeah. But it's not just accountability to the boss and what we can put over the boss. It's accountability to the team, to the business. That's what's really effective. And they're tough and exacting, absolutely. I like this. They make people feel good but are not feel-good managers. People will feel good if they're productive. They will feel good if the business is being successful. The factory that I was at, for example, we had, when I started there, it was over 200 people. We got that down to about 125. That sounds terrible. You laid off, 100 people. Well, when we had 200 plus people, we had about a 50% turnover of personnel. When we had 125, we had about a 0% turnover of personnel. There's some attrition, but it was essentially zero. Which one's better? Which one was more stable? And which one was happier? Yes, we laid off a bunch of people. We had to, because we had to make the business successful. But once it became a very good place, happy place to work. Because of doing a lot of this stuff. I'd never read the book, and we did things, used different terms, but it was the same idea. It became a happy place to work. And people love working for a place that's successful. And they knew it was successful because we were open with numbers. We shared the successes that we had. We were bringing on new products. We were changing this and changing that, making it more efficient. People like to see that stuff. And it's not being just told to them what to do. They were part of that decision making. A lot of the new ideas they came up with. So everybody wins. Multipliers have a great sense of humor and can laugh at themselves. I like the idea of vulnerability. And if you're a multiplier, I think you're vulnerable. You're human. It's not that you're perfect. Put yourself up on that pedestal and I never make a mistake, because first of all, it isn't true. But secondly, by being human, by being approachable, you're going to be much more effective and a much stronger leader by being vulnerable. Accidental diminisher. Diminishers generally do not understand how restrictive they impact others. Especially, a lot of times the business owners will be, almost by definition in the DISC, it's the high D personality, the dominant personality. So they have a tendency not to be as sensitive as some people are to what's going on around them. So they may accidentally diminish the folks beneath them. They're so strong, they're so committed, they're so enthusiastic about what they're wanting to do and passionate about what they're wanting to do. They tend to forget that other people have ideas, other people have maybe a better idea than what they do. So it may not be a thing that's on purpose, it may be something it's by accident. So putting some systems into place maybe that when you do have your meetings, and you should have regular meetings to get ideas from people, structure it in such a way that you're not the one dominating those meetings. You have each person responsible for a certain area, and they take ownership of that certain area. You've got the marketing, you've got the production, you've got the whatever, each different department, and they take ownership. They've got their own little sub-business they're running within that. When I took over the factory, I came from a marketing perspective. It would have been very easy for me to just run roughshod over my marketing manager. But I had to put controls on myself to make sure I didn't do that. I wouldn't make a marketing decision without consulting my marketing manager, because I don't want to step on his toes. Or the next time a decision is ready to be made, is he going to make it? No, he's going to ask me, because I just took away all his authority. Is that really what you want? Because if you're going to make all the decisions, you don't need the rest of the team. You want them making the decisions as well. You may put limits on it. That's okay. And they're supposed to consult. But you want them to be making as many decisions as they're capable of, as you want them to. Diminishers often grew up praised for their personal intelligence. If you think about somebody that's come up through the ranks, they probably came up through the ranks out on their own. They didn't start out as a manager. You didn't get out of college and suddenly you're a manager. It doesn't work that way. You came up through the ranks, so you probably had to prove yourself on your own merit, and probably were doing a lot of things by yourself. So it kind of makes sense then when you suddenly became a manager that, well, I still have to do all this stuff myself. No, there's a mind shift there. And somebody that's really good at doing stuff doesn't necessarily make them really good at managing stuff. Classic example there may be the salesperson. They may have done a fantastic job in sales, so what do? We'll make them the sales manager. Not necessarily a good idea. Because the salesperson is going to be out there, they're personable, they're not going to be necessarily as much in tune with doing the numbers, the accountability stuff, and whatever. The personality is a little different from a salesperson to a sales manager. But the tendency is to promote them within that line. If they're best sales manager or best salesperson, obviously should become the sales manager. I've got a good friend of mine that proved that case not to be true, and he tells the story on himself that he did an incredible job of being a great salesperson. So they made him sales manager, and he crashed and burned. And he quit the job and went back to being a salesperson. So it's kind of a natural thing that we have to watch out for, and watch out for in our people. Somebody that was really good at doing what they were doing may not be the best manager for doing that. And then don't fall into the trap yourself as well. So, talent mag, look for talent everywhere. Appreciate all types of, people are going to be different. Look for different personality types, skill sets in those around you. Ignore boundaries. Assume people want to contribute. Do you know what their native genius is? They may not know what their native genius is. Consider that as well, because they've never been challenged. They've always done what they've been told to do. Utilize people to their fullest, connect with people with opportunities, shine a spotlight, help them realize their gift. Give them the credit when it's due. It gets back to the money's one thing, recognition is totally different. People need to be recognized. They need to feel that they're making a contribution. They need to be paid competitive wage, but that's not what motivates people. Remove the blockers. Get rid of the prima donnas. That's a tough one. He goes through some examples in the book of having to fire the most productive person because they didn't fit the values that the company had, and they were actually causing more trouble than what they were worth, even though they were productive. If you just looked at that person individually, they were contaminating the rest of the group. And that's a shame, but that's hard to do. How do you fire your best salesperson? Get out of the way. Don't be a blocker yourself. Liberator. Create space. Release others by restraining yourself. Shift the ratio of listening to talking. Operate consistently. Level the playing field. It's getting the most out of the folks. And I'm brushing through this a little bit. Demand the best work. Again, it's not about making people feel good. It's demanding is okay, as long as they've bought into it and you're managing them, not controlling them in the process. Liberator, generate rapid learning cycles. Yeah, admit and share mistakes. Yeah, the Post-it example. Insist on learning from mistakes. What do we learn from that? What is it? Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. Maxwell's latest book. Actually, 2 books ago now. Great book. Path of least resistance is often the path of tyranny. Being a liberator is tough but rewarding. Sometimes it's just easier to control. It's easier to be the tyrant than it is to be the multiplier. That's why you have to be analyzing yourself and what you're doing, how you're managing continuously. Challenger, see the opportunity, show the need, challenge the assumptions. Again, there's always a better way of doing something. Reframe the problem as an opportunity. Create a starting point for the team. Lay down a challenge. You ask tough questions. Again, you're not supplying all the answers. You're asking the questions to get them thinking about it. Because by asking a question, you may get something back that you hadn't anticipated, which is a good thing. And let others fill in the blanks. Generate belief in what is possible. What's talking about here is get it close enough that you're involved in some of the details as well, but not controlling the details. So you're not 30,000 feet, but 1,000 feet. You can see the details, you can help the individuals with the details, and not being afraid to get your hands dirty, but helping the team members. When I ran the factory, I was always very willing to walk around the factory and get in there and operate the machines, do whatever I needed to do. Again, being approachable, being somebody that people could talk to and count on, not just sitting back in the office and, absentee management type thing. Lay out a path, co-create the plan with the people. Orchestrate an early, people need to win. So they need to have some goals that they can accomplish and then see the success. If you don't, if the goals are too lofty and they're unattainable, people will get disheartened and they'll just give up. So they need to have some wins and celebrate the wins. Have a pizza party, do whatever, but let people know that you appreciate them. Debate maker, frame the issue, define the question, form the team, assemble the data, frame the decision, spark the debate. You want that debate. You want the disagreement. You don't want consensus. That's been preached, and I disagree with it. Everybody says, well, you got to have consensus. No, you don't. Not at all. Consensus can be a bad thing. It's nice if everybody agrees, but it isn't absolutely necessary. Create safety for best thinking. You want people to be able to disagree. If you don't have the safety net, if they don't know they can disagree, then again, all you're going to get is safe, dull answers. And drawing from the Apple experience, I've got an iPhone there, there's Apple computers here. Were those safe, dull answers when they came up with those things? Those were people thinking outside the box. Demand rigor. Debate maker, drive a sound decision, re-clarify the decision-making process, make the decision, communicate decision and rationale. Why do people do what they do? Investor, define ownership. They need to take ownership. The team members need to take ownership of their area of the business. Name the lead. Give 51%. That's tough for a business owner. If you delegated that responsibility to somebody, give them 51% of the decision-making capability. Ouch. Think about that one. Give ownership for the end goal. Stretch the role. Let that person be willing to stretch into different areas, maybe even into different areas that are not their responsibility. That's okay. Invest the resources. Teach and coach. Provide backup. We as management are here to serve you, the team members, not the traditional other way around. Investor, hold people accountable, give it back. Expect complete work, respect natural consequences. Scoreboard. You have a visible scoreboard for the business. People know how they're doing. There should be no surprises. If you do a review of people, if they're surprised at the time of that review that, well, I didn't know the numbers were that bad, well, shame on you. There should be no surprises. They should be posted where everybody that needs to have access can see those numbers. No surprises. Multipliers do not get involved in the operational details, but they keep ownership with the team members. Become multi, work the extremes. Bring up your lowest low, take your highest high to the next level. Start with assumptions. If I can find someone's genius, I can put it to work. People's best thinking must be given, not taken. It won't be taken because you won't get their best ideas if you're trying to take it out of them. That's impossible. People get smarter by being challenged. That's the neat thing. People don't often know what they're capable of until somebody gives them the atmosphere to go beyond themselves. That example I had of the paper sleeve, that thing had been going on for 20 years. What changed? I listened. I was asking questions. I wander around and talk to folks, what's a better way of doing something? It was that simple. But he'd been doing it the same way for 20 years. With enough minds, we can figure it out. People are smart and we'll figure things out, absolutely. So how to become a multiplier? How will you become a multiplier? What impact will this have on your team and your business? And start now. Questions, comments? And we kind of flew through that. What do you think? Is that a different way of looking at things?
It made me think of a TV show, Undercover Boss. I relate everything.
Yes, yes.
But they did. They would go,
Yeah.
you had the CEO of a pizza company.
Yeah.
And they went back and there's somebody making minimum wage and not knowing that person's the CEO of the company and saying, whatever, if these just came pre-boxed and it would save me time. And then of course at the end of the show, when they sat down and said, we're going to incorporate your idea and here's $5,000 and go back to school and all this stuff. But I mean, it's great because the whole thing is they listen to the people who are actually doing the job every single day.
I can't remember the book I read, but it talked about a CEO that just came in to take over a company. And he's sitting in the cafeteria. Didn't announce who he was. Nobody knew who he was because he was a new guy on the block. And just watching people, and they're kidding each other and having fun at lunch and this kind of thing. And then as soon as the buzzer went off and they had to go back to work, there was this sullen face that took over. And it's, like this, going back to this was factory, I think, but going back to the workstation that they had, the fun was over, it's work time. And that's too bad. And then it goes on to talk about incorporating things like this to get people engaged and having more fun. And, you're with people that you work with for, 8-10 hours a day, whatever it is, depending on how long you keep your day. That may be more than you see your spouse during the week. So why not make it nice? Your normal spouse, not your work spouse. So why not make it pleasant? And the funny thing is, by injecting some of this humanity and making it fun and making it enjoyable, allowing people to stretch themselves, everybody wins. And yet the attitude of most managers is, can't do that. This is work. We got to be serious. We can't have fun. Why? Where's it? Do we have to get the job done? Yes. Do we keep score? Yes. So all that stuff. We're not taking away any of that stuff, but let's have fun with it.